To everyone who's present here. It's a pleasure to be with all of you once again after a short gap. My name is Natraj.
And I'm Sudha here.
And based on the theme of Indian Geoparks, we present to you some more trails that we have done on the past 2 years. And also recce's that we have done for some proposed geotrails. Of course, all these are a part of the proposed Indian Geoparks, which we hope will continue to grow. So we now take you through a couple of trails that we have organized in the last year, post-COVID, and also a couple of recce's reconnaissance trips that we have made to make the trails well organized. So as you will all remember, our trails are usually from point to point, and so far we have been focusing on trails around Pune, obviously because of the logistic support and for the logistic arrangements. But we are now going beyond the one-day programs, and we now look forward to carrying out the 2-day trails with a night halt. Now, as the theme for the geoparks and as specified by the UNESCO, our trails not just cover geology. We cover some part of the archaeology, the culture in the area, and the history of the area that we visit. So it's a kind of a trip which is holistic in approach, where we definitely discuss geology. Geology is, of course, the focus, and we get and then we talk about the history and other important places present during the trail. The reason is we do get a lot of laypersons, those who are non-geologists, who basically join us on the trips, and our feedback has been that for the trips has been very, very positive, and they keep asking for more. Yeah. So if you look at the geoparks in the Deccan Volcanic Province, we've highlighted several areas. Unfortunately, the area is quite large, even just the west coast of Maharashtra, or the western part of Maharashtra. And so far we have done a couple of trails, actually more than a couple. So the Pune Ahmednagar trail or the Pune Ahmednagar Geopark consists of 2 trails at least at the moment. And we would like to add one more to that. We've also done the reconnaissance on the Lonar Aurangabad areas. So these trails could start off with Aurangabad as the base, or Pune, or even Hyderabad as a base, because the travel time from Hyderabad to Aurangabad and Pune to Aurangabad is almost the same. Yeah, and there's a nice overnight train from Hyderabad to Aurangabad. Then over the last year, we have also looked at the Satara district, which consists of the famous hill stations Mahabaleshwar, Panchgani. But there is something beyond Mahabaleshwar and Panchgani here. We have the Thosegar Falls. Then we have the Khas Plateau, which is very, very unique to the area and to Maharashtra. And then we have the Mumbai area, Elephanta, Kanheri, Jogeshwari, etc. Again, Mumbai by itself would take a couple of days to explore. And in terms of a systematic trail, and considering the distances, it could be a 2 or a 3-day trail there. And then the other Nashik districts, Kolhapur, and then the west coast, Pali, Kolad, Alibag, have some very interesting aspects, not just from geology, but from the ancient historical as well as architectural and archaeological perspective. So this was one of the first geoparks which was proposed, and as a part of this, we have been carrying out a couple of trails. Geologically very interesting, and at the same time, it's got a lot of archaeological and cultural value. So if you look at the Pune Ahmednagar Geopark.
Yeah, if you look at the Pune Ahmednagar Geopark, actually, there is a lot of volcanological features which can be seen, and these are the place where for the first time lava tubes and lava channels were identified. We also have a large amount of dikes and you have the volcanic tephra or the ash beds which are present in the along the Kukudi River, and you have a number of geomorphic features. What is interesting is the lava flows here are actually in some way related to the various archaeological features which you find and historic features. You find a large number of caves here and forts. That is one of the primary reason why we started with Pune Ahmednagar Geopark, and we have proposed this to the intact, where we have given all these details there. Another reason is that this is a geological map of the area. Yeah, this is a geological map of the area. As you can see that this is the almost central, and you can find lava flows belonging to the three different subgroups: the Kalsubai group, Lonavala group, subgroup, and the Y subgroup. So which makes it more all the more interesting. And the separating the different groups, you have the giant plagioclase basalts. These are also very well exposed in this area. Yeah, yeah.
So, as a part of, to be honest, it started much before the concept of geoparks and much before we met with Ravi Garu. And we've been conducting geotrails basically to raise awareness of the importance of geosciences as a part of our mission at Surge. And we were quite encouraged by the fact that there are a lot of people who are interested in learning about geology and took a keen interest. So over the past 5-6 years that we have been in existence, we've taken tours, what we call geotrails, hills around Pune city for young college kids, right from the age of 7 to 8 years old. Then we have the Bhaja Caves, Goradeshwar and Shelarwadi trail, which we have conducted over the last 5 years, even much before the COVID. The Divya hill section is quite interesting, not just to geologists. It has been, for us, it has been a type section for
Students of master's
degrees, and we take them almost every year to make them understand. But then it's also equally interesting to the layperson. So we have now included this as the Malhargarh Trail, where we not only have the Ghat section, but we also take them to an ancient historical fort and some ancient temples in the region. Northeast of Pune, the trails are kind of now very well documented, very well received. The lava channel at Kanerwadi, some dikes with xenoliths, and basically spring tufa formation, and of course the giant potholes at Nigoj, which are now world famous. The other part of the geopark is the Ahmednagar area, where we look at flow morphologies, giant plagioclase basalts, and then the lava channel at Gunjale. In fact, it has got a remarkable expression on this. We'll see some photographs there, and what the person calls a frozen waterfall, but essentially a cliff drape made out of tufa. And last year's geotrail, which was again a big success, was the Divya Malhargarh Fort, where, like I said, we have good exposures of the road cuttings are usually what we as geologists use to explain the different aspects of the geology, but also a diversion of basically covering the Malhargarh Fort and some natural caves, natural and man-made caves in Saswad, near Saswad and Shirwad. So these are some pictures of some of our trails from the past. What you see here, where my pointer is essentially school kids. We took them on a trail, kind of a half-day trail up the Ferguson College Hill, which actually is a good, I say, a primer for studying geology, right in the heart of the city, just behind Ferguson College. And you can see the enthusiastic students collecting samples.
Zeolites. They are collecting zeolites from the small pockets which are seen there, and they are filled with stilvites and mesolites. So these small kids have collected many samples from here.
So these rocks that you see, if you see very typically shaped rocks, these are somewhere towards the west of Junnur city or Junnur town, as you call them, and these are our enthusiastic members of the team.
More like Nubins.
Basically looking at the different rock types, and then here are the Nubins. Must be essentially highly fractured and
Yeah, it's a highly jointed basalt, and along the joints, weathering has taken place, resulting in this kind of exposure. And this is the giant plagioclase basalt, which is separating two subgroups. That is the Kalsubai group and the Lonavala subgroup, Kalsubai and Lonavala subgroups. This is again near Shivneri Fort.
This is Shivneri Fort. As we climb up to Shivneri Fort, this GPB can be seen very prominently. Yeah. Of course, there's a certain amount of weathering which has taken place, but it's still quite visible and very interesting, especially to laymen. This was the 2019 Geotrail. Some pictures from there. We see the participants coming out of the bus and taking some pics. This is the natural arch at Gulanchwadi. And here we basically explaining exposure, basically
of Pahoi flows. This is a complete good exposure of Pahoi flows, and this is the flow contact from along which you have the water seepage, and these flows are intruded by a dike here at a little where
towards the
right hand side, and people are having a view of the lava channel from a distance actually here.
So this is the Geotrail 2021, which is essentially the Ahmednagar Trail, as we call it, Ahmednagar Trail. Again, a part of the larger Ahmednagar Geopark. And you can see the trail here. We leave from Pune and then we go to via Nagar to this place, Gunjale and the Vambuni waterfalls. Quite some interesting features here. And not just the geological features, but we have an ancient historical fort called Manjar Sumba, which was built by the Mughals. Huh? And so of course they are all in ruins now. And this is a exposure of a road cutting.
And here, this is the road cutting is here actually just behind one petrol pump, where we will show you some other photographs also. There you can see the complete exposure of Pahoi flows, which all the flow morphology is clearly seen. And this flow is, you can see this is an interflow horizon. This is a red interflow horizon, which separates the upper R flow from a lower Pahoi flow. And this is again another exposure of this lava channel which we find there. That this forms the rim of the lava channel, and that is where the cascade has taken place.
Cascade has taken place, and this is a long shot basically of what we will see, the Tufa waterfall, as we call it.
Yeah.
Just to make it a little more informative, when we plan these Geotrails, we prepare a handout and a booklet. We actually document every trail that we do, so that and these booklets are given to all the participants. So I mean, there is those who are interested have a record of what they visited, and brief history and the brief description of the history and the geology of the day.
This is the cover page of this.
This is the cover page, and it has been well received by all the participants. Interestingly, when we take school children and all that, the school children accompany us. They actually go back and submit a report at the end of the trail. So this is quite useful for them. So in the pictures you see, this is the waterfall here, and then this is the lava channel.
Yeah, this is a closer view of the flow. Showing the flow morphology of the Pahoi flows. Here, as where the hammer is kept, this is a inflation cleft. See, you can see a squeeze out here. Okay, these are all inflation clefts. Can you see these ones? And these are all small lobes, very small lobes, and that is the typical nature of a compound Pahoi flow. Okay, and this is the top of the compound Pahoi flow, where now these which look white, these are all the calcium carbonate which has been precipitated because of the water which is percolating, and this is very fine. Because it is very fine, the upper part of these flows are more or less glassy, that weathers easily, and that along that only actually you find all this white deposition of the calcium carbonate. This is the interflow, red interflow horizon, and the upper flow, which is an R flow. This is the Google map showing, Google image showing the complete trend of this
Basically a
lava
mosaic.
channel. A mosaic. It's a mosaic. This what you see is the lava channel. This is the lava channel. This is the, oh sorry. Okay, so we started our walking from here. This is Wamburi, and sorry, This is Wamburi here, and from here down the road, we start walking. This is the Wamburi waterfall, and after studying this area, and this entire ghat section, the giant plagioclase basalts are exposed, and this is the waterfall here. And we do not have sufficient time to study this entire section here, so we take them again and show them some places in this area.
So this is essentially the ghat section where those Pahui flows and the GPB are exposed.
Yeah, this is the exposure of GPB. What you find here, this is the GPB. We are explaining to all the participants, and this is the close-up of the GPB. This honey yellow colored thing, what you see, is the plagioclase, calcium-bearing plagioclase. And this is again another view of it, where this is to show clearly that this is a Pahui flow, where you can see the pipe vesicles. This is a red thin, you can see this thin red rind, that is the glassy rind of the marking the top of the lower one and the base of the upper unit. So you can see the pipe vesicles. So this is typically the close-up of the same giant plagioclase basalt what is exposed in the ghat section. So this is the close-up of that Caltufa, which is actually is more like a frozen waterfall. This particular thing what you see here is one of the margins of the lava tube, and it is this. Why is it remained here? Because the central portion has all been eroded. That is the lava fill material, the lava tube fill material. The margins are hard, reddened, and indurated, so they stand out. And it at this point that this rapid has formed, or the small waterfall has formed, the flows above this are all highly, they are giant plagioclase basalts with lot of calcium-bearing plagioclase minerals. With the result, when the minerals break down, calcium carbonate is deposited. Here, you probably may be able to see that they are actually more of biogenic in nature, and you can see along the grass and all these moss sheets, which are all covered, covered with calcium carbonate. Different morphologies have been identified here, and there are people who are now working on it.
Yeah, so very interestingly, this of course, this is in the channel of a stream where you find the waterfall and then consequent calcification.
This particular photograph was taken in the month of April, so it is dry. If you visit the area sometime in September, October, there will be still a waterfall with a huge plunge pool at the base.
Yeah, and the colors, of course, show a lot of moss around it.
Yes.
So this is the lava channel from where we see the channel. The kind of
you can see this meandering sinus pattern. This photograph is taken from top of the hill.
Yeah.
Actually, this is a panoramic giving you the complete panoramic view of the lava channel. All these are two margins, and the central portion is completely been removed. People are using it for construction, and it is softer than the margins, which are red and indurated. Because of the induration, it stands out actually. And if you can clearly see, if you follow my cursor, you can see this. What you see here, this is also a lava channel. This is what you see here. So the same thing that we had shown you had earlier seen the Google image map. This continues up to Wamburi. This is a schematic section which is prepared from this area itself, and you can see that the margins are highly fractured. Okay, and this is a typical close-up of the margins, where along you can see that huge fragments are there, and in the interspaces between the fragments is filled with zeolites. Mostly it is mesolite, and some amount of calcite also you find.
So this is the Talegaon Malavali trail, as we call it, much closer to Pune. In fact, less than 40-50 kilometers. Yeah, so we can see all these three major locations less than 40 kilometers away from Pune, and all of these are basically on the main road to Bombay, so quite easily accessible, and very interesting in terms of the geological aspects. So this trail essentially consists of the Bhaja caves in Malavali, which are ancient first, second century man-made caves by the Buddhist monks. I'll come to it in detail a little later. And then we have this lava cave, and then the potholes in Shelarwadi. Well, these potholes are not as large or well spread as the Nigoj potholes, but they are remarkable in their own way.
So these lava caves were again reported for the first time from this area, and these are drained lava tubes basically. And since they are smaller in size, they are referred to as actually subcrustal lava caves.
So essentially formed by draining of
Draining
the lava channels. So this is the Bhaja cave complex, quite interesting from a historical perspective and also from an architectural perspective in terms of the carving of the caves. What is interesting is this cave complex was started around 100 years before BC, roughly between 100 to 50 years before BC, and continued to be built or carved, not built, carved. Most of these caves are carved out of the rock, not really built, and extended. I mean, the construction or the excavation continued till about 2nd century, 150 years AD, between 150 years to 200. What is very interesting, these are the second oldest caves in the country, after the ones in MP, in Vaishali district.
The Barabar caves, after the
Barabar caves. Now, if you have a closer look, unfortunately, not put the slides, but if you look at, this is a stupa carved out of the in situ material, and you can see various features of a Pahoi flow.
Yeah, this is a typical, again, one full section of a Pahoi flow. You can see the parallel arrangement of the vesicles and amygdals, and a thin, crust kind of thing, glassy crust, and pipe vesicles typically showing inverted Y, turned in one direction. What is interesting about, another interesting thing about this Bhaja case is that here there is no statue of Buddha.
Okay. So very interesting again is that, I mean, I have been visiting these caves even when I was in school, and that time it was not. Fortunately for us now, this has been taken over by the Archaeological Survey of India and is now protected, and certainly some preservation attempts are being made. For example, these stupas were all, there is about 9 such stupas are there, which were exposed to the elements continuously because they were not in a cave. So now the ASI has actually built a shed over them, and there is a partial preservation of the same. Because as geologists, you will also realize the fact that these are easily erodable or easily weathered. And so in some of these stupas, you'll find that the roof has been lost thanks to the normal weathering process. Another very interesting fact about these caves is these were some of the first caves which the Buddhist monks were supposed to have carved out or excavated. And the architecture is very, very simple. And here we don't have a close-up. But if you look at these embellishments, or basically the decorations, were very simple, and they used to use a pattern which the archaeologists call the rail pattern. So it's basically like railway lines, but those are essentially like we have these railings, simple railings, horizontal and then vertical pipes. So very similar to that. And the reason is attributed to the fact that the monks and the workers who carved this particular cave complex, because this is again, we must remember they're one of the first few cave complexes that was done. and in the 1st and 2nd century, were basically done by carpenters who moved from carving wood to carving stone. And the carving stone is obviously very difficult as compared to wood. But as we actually go towards the southern part and we move towards Ajanta Ellora, these are more in the 7th and 8th century.
Yeah, even some of the caves nearby, that is Karla and Bedse, show slight improvement compared to Bhaja.
Yeah. So even as late as another 400 to 500 years, there's, the embellishments and the decorations become much more complex. Another notable feature is that the initial caves of which were carved by the Buddhists do not show a statue of Buddha anywhere. These stupas are supposed to symbolize Buddha, and so there will be one main this main cave which is called the Chaitya Griha, which is the main prayer hall, and Buddha is supposed to be symbolized by these stupas, and all the caves, the rooms around were basically residence areas. In fact, in this place you can actually see beds carved out of stone. And based upon the seniority of the monks, the size of the living quarters also changes. These are again the potholes in Shelarwadi. Again, what is interesting is the river at the back, before it hits Zanik Point, is very gently flowing. And then suddenly you have these deep gorges. Yeah. A lot of these potholes have coalesced into making a pattern. And eventually these will form a gorge when they basically are completely coalesce, and when they're completely weathered and they coalesce.
The entire thing is actually carved in Pahoi flows only.
So again, what you see is shot in sometime in January. So you see a lot of water around. In summer, the water levels keep receding. And another interesting feature is that you find the potholes and the gorge in a short track, maybe 1.5 kilometers long.
Yes.
After which, again, the river becomes very, very gentle.
The river here is Indrayani.
The Indrayani River, yeah, which is famous for the folklore. I mean, it starts off at Dev Road.
And just opposite where this Shelarwadi is the small hill, that is where you have this Ghoradeshwar caves. This is a natural cave in which these people are sitting. And adjacent to that area where you saw that lava tube, this is again remnants of the lava tube, that lava cave, naturally occurring lava cave, okay, naturally lava tube. And you have man-made or rock-cut caves. And some of these, they were originally Buddhist caves, which are now actually Hindu converted into Hindu temples.
To Shiva temples with the Shiva. And what is interesting is this: these two are probably in the same flow, but on opposite sides of the hill.
Yeah.
On opposite sides of the hill. We now come to the one of the most recent trails that we did, the Mallargarh Geotrail, which was done the southeast of Pune. So again, it starts from Pune. We have the Vadkinala Traverse and the exposure of the dike. And the Divya Road section shows some excellent features of the Deccan Trap, including interflow horizons and basically lava contacts or differentiation between different lava flows. From there on, we actually go to the Malhargarh fort, and then we visit the Saraswat temple, which is again historically very famous. And from there we move on to the Shirwal rock cut caves, which is here. So the Shirwal rock cut caves essentially are incomplete caves, probably because they started excavating them or carving them out in harder rock, and they could not complete this. This is the booklet again which we made for this. This is the dike you can see, which is very prominent. And so this is the picture of the dike, and the participants actually paying very keen interest to the explanations.
Yeah, the flows, the dike is including actually compound Pahoi flows, similar to the ones which we saw in the earlier trails. But these flows are younger. That is, these are belonging to the Karla formation. actually. Yeah, the Pahoy flows are belong to the Karla Formation. Yeah, this is a closer view of the closer view of the Pahoy flows along the Ghat Road and adjacent to the dike also. Here you can clearly see there are two flow units. This is a thin glassy crust which is separating the upper unit from the lower unit. You can see the parallel horizontal arrangement of the amygdules and pipe vesicle. Oh, sorry, pipe vesicles of the upper flow unit. And this is another thing. What you see here is the again an inflation cleft. Lost it? Yeah. Okay, and this is again along the Ghat Road. You can see this flow showing the typical jointed pattern. Here, these are the colonnades, and this is the entablature. And this what is sorry, again this is what you see the overhang here. This is actually the all the entablature, and this is the colonnade. You can see.
So what you actually see here, this is a close-up of this area, and you can see the overhang, the entablature and the colonnade joints in the lava flow.
You can see Kalesar also.
Yeah. So it's the same again as we go up, as we keep walking upwards. You find this very clear-cut interflow horizon and flow contacts.
This is the floater brachia, interflow horizon, and another upper flow. Again, another interflow horizon separating two other flows. Here again, you have the floater brachia marking the top of an R flow, a brown-colored interflow horizon, and a jointed upper flow. And this is very interesting because here you can see radial jointing. Typically around the central thing, you can see the joints are all radiating in all directions, also known as pincushion joints. This is the float-up brachia, and this is the brown-colored bowl.
Unfortunately, the pincushion or the what we used to call the necklace joints are no longer so easily visible because of the road widening, and we have lost most of it. But it's still there; it's quite visible. So this, what you see in this picture at the back is basically what we call the Nubians. Again, because of jointed flows which break down and form huge boulders. Something similar to the tors, the granitic tors.
But something
smaller. The smaller variety.
So you have the loose boulders strewn all over the place. These are known as Nubians. So our entire group is having a view of all this.
Explanations going on.
Yeah.
So Mallargarh again has got a history because this is the last fort built by the Marathas, by a Sardar of the Shivaji, and this is actually one of the entrances from the back. Supposed to be the main entrance, but now the road is not very good, so we take the rear entrance actually. And these are all the ruins which have been left. We built around 1757 or something. What you see here is basically
floater brachia of a R flow. And this typically, like I said earlier, that the forts are mostly built on R flows, and caves are always present in the Pahoy flows.
Yeah, easier to. So these are the Shirwal caves, incomplete caves. They've tried to basically carve out and then left it. So these caves do not really show any Chaityagraha's or any of these stupas like the more established caves.
One of the reason probably is because this is not typically a Pahoy flow. This is actually a simple flow which doesn't have typical features of Pahoy flow or R flow, and it is at many places jointed. So probably when we saw in one of those caves which they tried to carve, there is water seepage. Probably that is the reason that they did not continue carving in this area.
So after that, we basically, those are some of the trails which we have conducted successfully, and we do that almost every year. And we now come across basically some proposals. So we have 3 trails for which we have already done the Reikis. I'll do it first. The Junnar and adjacent areas, which is typically a 2-day trail. The Satara Geotrail is also a 2-day trail because it cannot be covered in one day. The reason may not have many features, but the fact is that the travel distances from point to point are quite large. And Aurangabad Lonar Geotrail, depending on from where you start, could be a 3-day or a 4-day trail. Yeah, but this is a very interesting trail, which could become an independent geopark by itself. So in the Geotrail, essentially we cover again starts from Pune. We cover the Shivneri Fort and caves, the Leniadri caves, Naneghat, which was essentially the Naneghat is essentially the was considered is to be the trade route. And Nane in Marathi actually means coins. And this was supposed to be the toll booth where they were collecting the toll. This is, of course, the entrance to the Shivneri fort, and these are the Lenyadri caves. Again, very famous for their historical as well as religious. Yeah. And a part of this trail also includes now the Bujkewadi petroglyphs, which have been found on the way to Junnar, in a place near Kalam. This is the Satara Geotrail. Again, a one-day trail, but typically it should be done in 2 days, because if you look at it, the travel time itself is about 8 hours. So here we start off with Sherwell flow and flow contact, and the caves. Then we go to the Karst Plateau, which is unique. You have some unique flowering happening in particular seasons.
It's a biodiversity hotspot for wild seasonal plants, and actually it has become a part of UNESCO World Heritage Site. Yeah.
So basically, yeah. But what is interesting is again, I visited that several years ago, and now more recently, last year we have revisited it. We find that it is now protected with fencing and all that, and very well looked after locally. So there is no picking of the flowers and stuff like that. And we also have trained guides to explain what are the different plants and the flowers and all that. Ajinkya Tara Fort is again historical interest. The Tosegar waterfall, you see this is the Tosegar waterfall. This is of course a section near Mahabaleshwar. From Mahabaleshwar we actually take the scarp. An excellent view of the Western Ghat escarpment. This temple is what we get is the backside, because photography is prohibited in the front side now. This is historical as well as religious importance, because this is where the Krishna originates, the river Krishna originates. The place called Jor in Mahabaleshwar, part of Mahabaleshwar area. And these are the Toshigar waterfalls. Now moving on to the Aurangabad Lonar Geotrail, excellent area for not just geology but architecture, history, and archaeological interest. And we all know that the Ajanta and Ellora rock cut caves are UNESCO heritage sites. So we begin the tour at Ellora, and depending upon the trail, we could also visit Ajanta, the Daulatabad Fort, Aurangabad caves, which are in the city itself. Bibi Ka Maqbara is considered to be a replica of the Taj Mahal. Of course, not built out of marble, but built out of local stone.
But it is built out of red-colored basalts.
Then we have Panchakki, which is basically a hydrological innovation in the last century. Then different flow morphology and contacts en route to Jalna. And most importantly, the Lonar meteor crater, which is a remarkable sight. I mean, one has to see this, must see a lifetime. What you see here is essentially the GSI plaque, which basically says that this is a protected geoheritage site. One of the first ones, no? GSI. This is, of course, I think most people will be familiar with the Ellora caves.
And this is the Krishneshwar temple. You can see the lower part is all made up of actually red-colored, and this is a red-colored basalt, not Jaipur sandstone or something. Again, here you have your Kuldapa. Here again, there is all reddish-colored basalt is used, and this church in Goregaon is completely made up of red-colored basalt. And what are these red-colored basalts? That is most interesting, because those are the ones which are the indurated and reddened basalts which are found at the margins of the lava tubes, which clearly shows to say that there were large number of lava channels in this area, and the architects at that time knew that this is a good stone to be used as a dimension stone.
Yeah. But the story is there. If you ask some people, the Krishna, they'll say that the stone was imported from Rajasthan, which is actually not true. So moving on beyond Maharashtra, trying to make an attempt during some of our trips and trails is the part of the proposed Trivandrum Varkala Geopark. Is the Varkala Geotrail, which can be done in 1 day or 2 days. Essentially, starts off at Trivandrum. we reach Varkala, the Varkala beach, which is beautiful. And this is the laterite sandstone and
sandstone interpreted with clay
and clay sequence. So this is, we'll see some more pictures. This is basically a tunnel, historical tunnel. What we see here looks like a bridge, but more importantly, this is a waterway which was being used in the last century. And very interestingly, now under the waterways plan of the Indian government, they are now rejuvenating this by desilting and all that. Yeah. So this tunnel or this waterway was actually built in 1876 and it was concretized in 1880. So you see the plaque here commemorating that. This is again the Varkala cliff. You see a lot of fallen boulders, flatrite, and these interpreted sequences. I think these are tertiary sequences.
Yes, that black one's carbon.
And this picture is of Anchutengu Fort, which means basically 5 coconuts. 5 coconut trees, which is built by the Britishers as again a landing port from where a lot of trade was being carried out. Again, another view of the Varkala beach. So what is interesting is in today's Times of India in Kerala, I talked to you about the waterways. It's called the TS Canal. They are now going ahead full swing, desilting the canal, and this is called the West Coast Canal, and will form a waterway from Akulam to Quilon or Kollam in the south, which means very soon you can actually do this entire stretch using a boat or basically a larger variety of a boat. That is it. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is about ourselves. Basically, we are now a registered entity, Surge, with income tax deduction. And, thank you very much for your patient hearing. And this is not the end. The discussion on the presentations will continue. So please stay back.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Dear Professor Bhargava ji, Dada, Dr. Rasik Ravindra ji, Ravi garu, Dr. Nageshwaran garu, and all the people, all the scientists, professors, and geologists who have gathered here virtually to celebrate the 3rd anniversary of Geoparks group. It gives me great pleasure to make a presentation on geotourism and geoparks through a commoner's lens. And before I proceed any further, I wish to thank Ravi garu and Nageshwaran garu for their kind invitation and technical help in making this possible. Thank you so much. Friends, there are so many subjects, that start with the geo, G-E-O. So I would like to categorize all of these geo subjects into 2 categories, category 1 and category 2. I'll put under category 1 items like geology, geomorphology, geochronology, geochemistry, geophysics, etc. Under category 2, we can have things like geoheritage, geoconservation, and geotourism. And who works in these areas? It is geologists, geology professors, and geoscientists in category 1 as well as category 2. And who are the target for these people? The target are their own peers, students, research scholars. Whereas in category 2, we have common people, school students, parents, administrators, policymakers, and bureaucrats. So you see, they are very different, the target people. And what do the target audience read? In our category 1, people read scientific journals like Science, Nature, JGSI, Journal of Geomorphology, Geochimica, Cosmochimica Acta, and so on and so forth. You also read things on the internet. They are on Facebook, they read blog posts, they are on Twitter, Instagram, etc., etc. And what do category 2 people read? They don't read, our scientific journals. They read newspapers, magazines, pamphlets, and brochures. Of course, they also read things on the internet, blog posts. They're again on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and other platforms. So, if you look at the nature of material read by category 1 and category 2 people, it is totally different, technical and scientific versus non technical. So, what is good for category 2 people? It's obviously non technical material, right? At this juncture, I would like to ask my brother, Mr. Prakash, to take over. He's basically a businessman, and he will talk to you about his views about what geotourism and what a geopark should look like and what we should do for promoting these things. Well, this is Prakash, Shankar's twin brother. A very good evening to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Shankar was telling me that there is a webinar today on geotourism and geoparks, and I have some interest in tourism and all these things because I travel a lot, and then whenever I find time, I go and see places nearby. And I've also had discussions with Shankar about various things. So I'd like to share my own views about these aspects from a commoner's viewpoint as a tourist, what I wish to see. Friends, for your kind information, I do not know geology, okay? And I have no intention of becoming a geologist or a geoscientist or a geology professor. I would like to continue in business. And I'm a commoner, I'm a tourist. So it will be a tour, not a geological field trip for me. But I'm very keen to learn some exciting aspects of Mother Earth from you because you know so much about the Earth and Earth processes, the landforms, scenery, everything. First, I need non-scientific materials to read. Okay, because I said I have no information about geology. So I would like to read brochures, leaflets, posters, coffee table books, and other such materials which are non-scientific in nature, something that I can read and easily understand. And it will be nice if these publications are kept at tourism offices, travel agencies, bus stations, railway stations, and airports, so that people like me can pick up those things and benefit from whatever you write. You can also publish all of these on online as well. People, as I said, look at the internet and read things there. And today's younger generation is mostly on internet most of the time, as we know, and this is a good way to catch them. Continued. Now you can write articles in newspapers, popular magazines. These are the things that I read and others read. And you can also produce breathtaking videos of various features, and that will be very eye-catching. It will attract the attention of people. Let me say something about the style of narration that I like. KISS. Well, it means keep it simple and short. You must make it interesting, simple, and keep it short so that it will attract people's attention. And your narration must be understandable, comprehensible. It must be like a story, story narration. And it must be jargon-free, because we common people do not know geology, we do not know the scientific terms. As I said, I do not understand your scientific terms. When I was just reading some of the materials that Shankar reads, I came across terms like Holocene, Archean, Precambrian. I have wondered what these terms meant. So when I asked him, he said, basically these are all geological periods, times in the past, the geological past. I only know of Jurassic from the Jurassic Park fame. So if you want to refer to a geological time, say that, so and so million years ago or billion years ago, rather than using these very scientific terms. I will not understand them. And Shankar also says something like Kamaga. These are like, Kannada alphabets, Ka, Ma, Ga. But he told me that these refer to ages, so many thousand years ago, or million years ago, or billion years ago. So it will be nice if you can say straight away so many million years ago rather than using Kama, etc. And there are also terms like, ignimbrite, charnocite, etc. that he uses, but I don't know what they mean. He told me that these are rocks. And I only know the three categories of rocks: the igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rocks. So these are things that people can easily understand, and there's no problem if you refer to these three categories of rocks rather than specifically some type of rock. In other words, what I would like to say is, please do not give us an overdose of details because we are not geology people. And I love lots of photographs and diagrams because a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So if you show pictures like this, we can easily follow what you're talking about, and you do not have to describe in so many words. I must confess, ladies and gentlemen, that I find it difficult to understand scientific concepts. Once Shankar spoke to me about something called hydrothermal activity. I don't know what it meant. I asked him what it is. Then he showed me this diagram and explained how the cold seawater on the sea bottom gets into the cracks and fissures in the oceanic crust, goes down, gets heated up, and comes up as hot springs, and how they can produce ore deposits. So that was very nice and exciting to know, but I could only understand these things with the help of a proper diagram. So if you want to explain a scientific concept, kindly use a good diagram, illustrative diagram, and then explain the process in a simple, lucid manner. I've been to St. Mary's Island, where you find columnar rocks. When Shankar was still in service, I had the opportunity to visit him several times, and we've been there to St. Mary's Island. And these are the columnar rocks, right? So I asked him, how do these things form? How do they get this pillar shape? Then he explained, with the help of a diagram like this, how cooling takes place and how cracks appear at regular intervals. But still, it was not so very clear to me. And he gave me an analogy of mud cracks, how mud contracts and then cracks appear. So the concept of column formation became even more clear with an analogy. So please use diagrams and analogies to explain complex aspects for people like me. If you don't do this, I will lose interest. Now, in geoheritage, geoparks, you say that, a geosite is very important. But my point is, there are rocks and rocks everywhere. There are structures that we see in all places. But why is a certain spot, why is a certain site important? So you got to explain to me why it is important. Otherwise, how will I know? And also, you must explain why these sites are worthy of conservation. Because I believe that some places have special significance, and this has got to be explained clearly to common people. So then they will understand, appreciate, and try to conserve and help you in your efforts of conservation. Friends, I'm tech savvy. So are the millennials and the later generations. They know too much. In fact, I learned so many things from them many times. And whatever you produce must be smartphone compliant, because smartphone is the one that they use all the time. They rarely sit on a computer, but most of the things are done on a smartphone. So your software, everything must be smartphone compliant. And request, please use modern technologies and techniques when you make photographs or videos. And do geotagging of photographs, so that gives you the location where you took the photograph. And use QR code. If I scan this QR code, I'll get all the history of whatever you're saying. And that is what most people do today, QR code for everything. And you can also use apps like GeoParkway and GeoPark, like those. So it becomes easy for me to go through all the details that you have gathered and presented. When it comes to eating food, I'm a foodie. Whether I'll prefer a plate full of biryani or a thali. Personally, I like a thali because it contains many varieties, whereas biryani means it's only one single item. Of course, it's each one's choice, but my choice is a thali. Why is a thali preferable even in the case of geoparks and geotourism? See, as a tourist, I'm not interested in only geology things. I'm interested in several other things. Okay. So offer geological aspects as the main dish. The main dish here is rice and some puri, but also provide side dishes like what you see in the plate. So provide side dishes like these. Now, art, architecture, history, culture, archaeology, heritage, anthropology, and so many other things. Let me say that you don't have to go in search of all of these side dishes, but whatever is possible in the area that you're working on, present those. If there is some archaeological site, include that in your geopark, in your tourism circuit, things like that. And also have anthropology, ecology, and wildlife, so that the people who have an interest in these aspects can also spend some time looking at those. So side dishes are of interest to people like me. This way I can assure you that you can sell geotourism, can sell geoparks to tourists. If you put only geology, people will not be interested. It will become more of a geological field trip. That's good for geology students and other researchers, not for us. Also, I would like to have a proper schedule like this one, which Shankar prepared for, the Bangalore trip. Very important are aspects like the timings, what time we depart and what time we arrive at a certain place, what are the different stops, and what we see at each place, and then what time we end up the whole thing. Also, it's important to indicate where refreshments are possible, because people will feel hungry because they are walking all the time. They'll need food. It's also necessary to have toilet facility because we cannot ease ourselves just here and there. This is particularly important when we have ladies accompanying. So if these preferences are kept in mind, I would like to say, ladies and gentlemen, that it is possible to provide me and others like me a wholesome, I repeat, a wholesome touristic experience. It's possible to promote geotourism, geoheritage, and geoconservation. It's possible to take your science, geoscience, to the masses and to school children. It's also possible to convince the higher-ups to help you with conservation of geoheritage sites, and and setting up of geopark in India. Yes. Have you heard of this? People say, "Jungle mein mor nacha, kisne dekha?" It means a peacock dances in a forest. Has anyone seen that? No, because we are not in forests. We live in villages, cities, and towns. That's the background to what I'm going to say now. I would like to once again say that I cannot understand if I read your valuable contributions published in scientific journals. Period. They're like the more that I mentioned just now. I won't be able to read them, understand them. So prepare materials that we commoners can understand and appreciate. After all, I feel that geotourism and geoparks are more for people like me. Friends, thank you so much for your time and attention. Here are my contact details in case you want to be in touch with me for any queries or questions. Once again, thanks to Ravi Garu and Nageshwaran Garu. Thank you.